Earth had always been a quiet, unnoticed planet in the vast expanse of the galaxy. For years, humans had lived in relative peace, their only concerns revolving around their daily lives. They had no idea that beyond their atmosphere, powerful forces watched them with cold, calculating eyes. The Galactic Council, a massive empire that ruled over countless planets, had never thought twice about Earth. It was a primitive world, far from the center of galactic power, and they assumed it would remain insignificant. But one discovery would shatter that assumption. Dr. Amelia Drake, a scientist working in the quiet depths of a government research facility, had stumbled upon something that would change everything. While studying a series of old, seemingly insignificant artifacts recovered from deep underground, she discovered a strange energy source. It was unlike anything known to humanity. The readings were off the charts, a power source capable of sending ripples across the very fabric of space itself. When she showed the findings to her superiors, no one believed it. They thought it was just another anomaly, something to be ignored. But Dr. Drake couldn't shake the feeling that this was important. Her instincts told her this discovery could be humanity's key to survival. The Galactic Council had been keeping a close watch on Earth for years, silently tracking the progress of human technology. The moment they learned about the discovery of the mysterious energy source, they took immediate action. They had underestimated Earth's potential for so long, and they could not allow a primitive species to wield such power. Supreme Leader Xoreth, a ruthless and calculating leader, sent a fleet of warships to Earth with a single command: destroy anything that could threaten the Council's rule. The first sign of the Galactic Council's presence came as a shadow in the sky. At first, it was just a small dot, an unfamiliar shape far above the clouds. But within hours, the sky above Earth was filled with ships, massive, terrifying warships, each bristling with weapons, shields, and technology far beyond anything humans had ever seen. Panic spread across the world as the Council's fleet appeared in the skies of every major city, their intentions clear. In a government command center, Dr. Drake watched in horror as the emergency alerts poured in. The screens flashed with images of the Council's ships, their enormous size dwarfing the Earth's meager defense forces. The military was mobilized, but they were no match for the Galactic Council. They had no idea how to fight something so advanced. It was clear the Council was here to conquer, and Earth had no way of stopping them. The battle seemed inevitable. But that's when it happened. As the first ships from the Galactic Council descended, Dr. Drake's research team managed to activate the ancient power source deep within their lab. They had no idea what would happen. They only knew it was something they had to try, their last hope. The artifact hummed to life, its energy swirling out in waves that radiated through the facility. Then, something unexpected occurred. A massive shockwave of energy burst from the facility, exploding outward with terrifying force. The shockwave was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It wasn't just a physical blast of power. It was something deeper, more fundamental. The energy surged through the very atmosphere, crackling and pulsating as it raced outward, traveling faster than the speed of sound. It hit the first wave of the Council's ships before they could react, and suddenly, Earth's quiet little world had become a force to be reckoned with. The massive warships shook violently, as if they had been hit by a bolt of lightning. Shields flickered and failed, sending huge sparks across the blackness of space. Dr. Drake stared in disbelief as the displays showed the damage. The ships that had been positioned to take Earth had been crippled by the shockwave. Some ships spun out of control, while others exploded in flashes of light. The human defenders were stunned. They had no idea what had just happened, but it was clear that Earth had done something no one thought possible. They had hurt the Galactic Council. Back in the command center, the military officers scrambled to understand what had just taken place. Their sensors confirmed that the alien fleet had been severely damaged. Earth's forces, who had been prepared for total annihilation, found themselves in a momentary position of strength. For the first time in the entire galaxy, they were not the helpless, insignificant species they had once been. They had just launched an unexpected blow at an empire that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. In space, the surviving Galactic Council ships struggled to regain control. Supreme Leader Xoreth watched from his command ship, his expression one of disbelief. The shockwave had not just damaged his fleet, it had humiliated him. Earth had retaliated. It was the first time in his life that he had been caught off guard, and the fury he felt was like nothing he had ever experienced. He had underestimated the humans, and now the entire galaxy would see the price of that mistake. Xoreth's voice was cold and filled with rage as he issued his orders. Deploy the second wave. Earth will fall, no matter what it takes. We will crush them beneath the full might of the Council. But even as he spoke, something inside him shifted. This was no longer just about quashing a threat. This was personal. The humans had defied the Galactic Council, and now Xoreth's pride demanded retribution. No matter what force Earth had unleashed, he would make sure they paid for their insolence. Back on Earth, Dr. Drake and the rest of the surviving military forces had no time to celebrate their first victory. The shockwave had been a fluke, an unexpected outcome of the ancient artifact's power. They had no way of predicting what would happen next. The Galactic Council would return, and this time, they would come prepared. For the first time in human history, Earth had made its mark on the galaxy. But the battle for survival was only beginning. The war that had seemed impossible was now a reality, and every human on Earth would have to fight if they were to have any hope of surviving the coming storm. No one could predict the outcome, but one thing was certain: the Galactic Council would never look at Earth the same way again. As the first of the Council's reinforcements began to appear on the horizon, Earth braced itself for the most dangerous battle it had ever faced. The war had just begun, and humanity would never be the same again. The Galactic Council had been stunned by Earth's unexpected resistance, but it was only the beginning. Supreme Leader Xoreth had never experienced such humiliation. His pride, the very foundation of his empire, had been shattered by a planet they thought insignificant. Earth's blow, though powerful, had only delayed the inevitable. Xoreth had made it clear to his fleet: this war would be a demonstration of the true might of the Galactic Council, and Earth would be crushed. After regrouping, the Council's forces launched their second wave. This time, they came prepared. Their warships, massive and heavily armored, began to appear in Earth's orbit in droves. Every corner of the sky was filled with Council vessels, each one capable of destroying entire cities in mere moments. The Council had learned from their earlier mistakes and had adjusted their tactics. Earth had caught them off guard once, but they would not make that mistake again. Back on Earth, Dr. Amelia Drake stood in the military command center, her mind racing. She had watched the first wave of the Council's fleet fall to the power of the ancient artifact. It had been a fluke, a strike of pure luck. She knew the artifact had more power, but could it really make a difference this time? The Council was bringing everything they had, and their forces were far superior in numbers and technology. Earth's military was nothing compared to the full force of the Galactic Council. The artifact was their only hope, but it was an unpredictable force, and she had no idea how much energy it could handle before it became unstable. Dr. Drake, a voice broke through her thoughts. It was Commander Harris, the leader of Earth's military forces. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his resolve was clear. We need a plan. The second wave is on its way, and we don't have enough firepower to hold them back. What are we going to do? Drake turned to face him. The weight of the situation settled heavily on her shoulders. We can't fight them with brute force, she said. Our only advantage is the artifact. We need to use it to its fullest potential. We don't have time to waste. We'll have to strike at their fleet before they can get too close. Harris nodded, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. And if the artifact doesn't work again? If it doesn't do enough damage? Drake's heart skipped a beat at the question. The thought of failure, of humanity being wiped out by an enemy they had no way of defeating, was too much to bear, but there was no time to dwell on it. They had no choice but to try. She had to believe in the power of the artifact, even if it was their only hope. "Prepare all ships for a counterattack," Drake ordered, her voice steady. "We'll make our stand here. The artifact can't be the last resort. It has to be the first strike." As the military prepared for what could be the final battle, the skies above Earth darkened with the arrival of the Council's second wave. The Galactic fleet was far larger now, its ships forming a nearly impenetrable blockade. They moved with precision, each ship knowing its role in the coming assault. The humans had no idea what was coming. Earth's defenses, already battered from the first wave, would not withstand this second wave for long. The Council's ships bristled with weapons, death rays, plasma cannons, and massive energy shields that could obliterate anything in their path. "Commander Harris," Dr. Drake's voice crackled over the comms. "Tell the fleet to focus their fire on the lead ships. We need to disrupt their formation before they can land any troops." Harris acknowledged the order and relayed it to the fleet. The human forces moved into position, their ships lining up in a desperate attempt to hold back the incoming tide. Earth's fleet, though small, was determined to fight to the last. They knew this battle might be their final stand, but they also knew that they had one advantage: the artifact. If it could unleash the kind of power it had in the first wave, it might give them a fighting chance. Dr. Drake watched as the first shots were fired. Explosions lit up the space between Earth and the incoming fleet, but the Council ships were not as vulnerable as the ones they had faced before. The lead ships fired back with deadly accuracy, sending blasts of energy that shook Earth's ships to their cores. The human forces were pushed back, their shields flickering as they struggled to maintain their position. Despite their efforts, the Council was gaining ground. Their ships moved in close, their massive size casting shadows over Earth's cities. It seemed only a matter of time before the Council would land and begin their invasion. As the seconds ticked by, Dr. Drake's fingers hovered over the console in front of her, her mind racing. The artifact's energy was building again, but could they harness it in time? Suddenly, an alarm blared across the command center. "Dr. Drake, the artifact's energy readings are spiking." Lieutenant Marlowe's voice was filled with urgency. "It's about to discharge. We're losing control over it. Divert power from the backup generators," Drake ordered, her mind made up. "We need to stabilize it. I don't care what it takes, just make sure we can use it." The room went quiet as the team worked furiously to stabilize the artifact's power core. Dr. Drake's heart raced as she watched the readings on the monitor, praying that they could harness the energy in time. She could feel the power surging beneath her feet, the artifact coming to life once again. At that moment, the Council's lead ships opened fire. The barrage of energy struck Earth's defenses, cracking the shields and causing massive explosions on the surface. Earth's cities were burning. The skies turned to ash as the first wave of Council troops began to descend. But then, as if responding to the human need, the artifact erupted with a blinding flash of energy. It wasn't a shockwave this time, but a concentrated beam of pure, concentrated power that shot out into the heart of the Council's fleet. The beam pierced the closest warship, sending a shockwave that rattled the entire fleet. The ship exploded in a violent burst, and the beam continued onward, striking several others. The power was devastating. The Council's fleet staggered, their ships reeling from the unexpected attack. For the first time, they were on the defensive. The humans had struck again. But the battle was far from over. The Galactic Council wasn't going to let this setback stop them. They would regroup, adapt, and come for Earth with even more ferocity. The real war was just beginning, and this was only the second chapter of humanity's fight for survival. As the Earth forces held their ground, a new realization dawned on them. They were no longer the weak, unimportant species they once were. They had awakened something in the galaxy, and the Council would not stop until Earth had been utterly destroyed. But for now, humanity had shown them that they were not to be underestimated. The fight for survival had only just begun. The aftermath of the second wave was a mixture of victory and despair. Earth had once again struck a devastating blow to the Galactic Council, but the cost had been high. The skies above the planet were littered with the wreckage of Earth's fleet, and the ground below smoldered with the remains of the cities that had been hit by the initial Council bombardment. Fires raged across the planet, but there was something that none of the humans could deny. They had managed to hold their own against the overwhelming force of the Council. However, the victory was bittersweet. The artifact had proven its power once again, but its unpredictable nature had left many of Earth's military leaders questioning its reliability. Was the weapon truly Earth's salvation, or would it soon turn against them? There was no way to know for sure, and that uncertainty weighed heavily on Dr. Amelia Drake and Commander Harris. Dr. Drake stood in the command center, staring at the holographic display of Earth's remaining forces. The battle had not been won. It had only been delayed. The Council's second wave had been repelled, but the Galactic Empire was far from defeated. Sorath, the supreme leader, was not the type to accept defeat so easily. Earth's defiance had sparked a fire in him that would only burn brighter. He would not stop until every last human was wiped from the face of the galaxy. Dr. Drake, Commander Harris's voice broke through her thoughts. He had a grim expression on his face. We've been getting strange reports from the front lines. The Council's forces, they're regrouping. We've just received intelligence that they're assembling a massive third wave, one that will make the last two look like a skirmish. The artifact may have been a surprise for them, but they won't be caught off guard again. Dr. Drake's heart sank. She had known this was coming, but hearing it aloud made it feel all too real. What's their plan? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. They're bringing in reinforcements from all across the galaxy. Warships, ground forces, and new weapons we've never seen before. This time, they plan to overwhelm us completely. They'll have everything in place to crush our defenses. Drake rubbed her temples in frustration. The artifact, as powerful as it was not a miracle cure. They had no idea how long it would continue to function, or if it could even be replicated. And even if it could, Earth's resources were stretched thin. Their fleet was almost depleted, and the surviving cities had been reduced to rubble. The Council would soon bring in forces strong enough to wipe out any hope of resistance. There was a brief pause before Commander Harris spoke again. We need a new plan, Dr. Drake. If we don't act soon, the Council will have Earth completely in their grasp. We need to strike first, hit them hard before they can organize their full assault. Drake nodded slowly, her mind racing. We need to find a way to take out their flagship, she said, her voice suddenly sharp with determination. If we take down Sorath's command ship, it could cause chaos in their ranks. It won't win the war, but it will buy us some time. And maybe, just maybe, it'll shake their confidence. Harris raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting we go after the flagship directly. That ship is a fortress. We're talking about the heart of their entire fleet. It'll be suicide. It's our only chance, Drake replied firmly. Sorath can't lead an army if he has no army to lead. If we can cripple his command, the rest of the fleet will fall into disarray. We don't need to destroy everything. They're overconfident, and that will be their undoing. The tension in the room was palpable, but Harris nodded after a moment of thought. You're right. A strike like that could break their will to fight. I'll get the fleet ready, but we need to make sure we have a way to get close enough without being detected. Drake nodded, her thoughts already working on the next part of the plan. They had no time to waste. The Council's third wave was on its way, and this was their only shot at making a difference. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was in chaos. Supreme Leader Sorath was seething with rage as his fleet regrouped. The damage to his forces was significant, and his pride had been wounded. The humans had fought back, not once, but twice, and Sorath would not tolerate it. He called for an emergency council session to address the situation. In the council's massive war room, the leaders of the Empire gathered around a massive table. Holographic images of Earth and its defenses flickered above the surface, and the tension in the room was thick. Sorath's eyes burned with fury as he addressed his generals. "The humans have proven themselves to be more resourceful than we anticipated," he said coldly, his voice filled with venom. "But they are weak. Their planet is fragile, and their forces are limited. We will end this war once and for all. They cannot win. Their defiance is an insult to the glory of the Galactic Council. We will crush them beneath our heel, and I will make an example of every last one of them." One of his generals, a tall, armored figure named Torketh, stepped forward. "What of their artifact, leader? Should we not focus on neutralizing it? It has shown us what it is capable of." Sorath's eyes narrowed. "The artifact is a threat, yes, but we will deal with it later. First, we will break their spirit. We will strike hard, and we will not stop until there is nothing left but ashes. Deploy the third wave and make sure Earth feels the full power of the Council. This time, nothing will stand in our way." Back on Earth, the military prepared for their daring strike. Their plan was risky, and it was not without sacrifice. To get close enough to Sorath's flagship, they would need to bypass the bulk of the Council's forces and infiltrate their command ship. The human fleet was weak, but there was no choice but to fight. They had to act quickly before the third wave could destroy them completely. Dr. Drake stood at the command center, looking out over the battlefield as the final preparations were made. She couldn't help but feel a sense of uncertainty. They had fought bravely, but this new phase of the war would be the true test. If they failed, Earth would be lost, and there would be no second chance. But if they succeeded, if they could take out Sorath's flagship, it could change the course of the war. The fate of humanity rested on a single dangerous mission. Time was running out, and the third wave was fast approaching. The next few hours would decide everything. It was a gamble, but Earth had no choice but to play the hand they had been dealt. The fight for survival had entered its most dangerous phase yet. The tension in Earth's command center was thick as the final preparations for the strike against the Galactic Council's flagship were made. Dr. Amelia Drake stood before the holographic map of the galaxy, her eyes fixed on the glowing red blip marking the location of Sorath's ship. She knew this mission was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was humanity's last hope. If they could succeed in crippling the flagship, it would throw the Council's entire fleet into disarray and buy Earth a much-needed respite from the storm that was quickly descending on them. But failure would mean total annihilation. "Commander Harris, is the fleet ready?" Dr. Drake asked, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. Harris, his face etched with determination, nodded grimly. "All ships are in position. The last recon team has reported that the flagship is heavily guarded, but we found a weak spot in their defenses, a blind spot in their shields. It's our only shot at getting in close without being detected." Drake's heart skipped a beat. "What's the plan?" "We'll move in under the cover of darkness, using the remaining stealth technology we've recovered from the artifact," Harris explained. "Our best pilots will get us through their defenses while the rest of the fleet creates a diversion. Once we're close enough, we'll launch a full assault on the flagship's core. It's risky, but it's the only way to create the chaos we need." Drake hesitated for a moment, thinking of the soldiers who would risk everything in this attack. And if the artifact's energy runs out? Harris' expression was solemn. "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. We're running out of time, Dr. Drake. The third wave is already en route, and once they arrive, Earth won't stand a chance." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. Dr. Drake nodded and turned her attention to the large display screen, watching as the remaining fleet assembled for the most dangerous mission humanity had ever undertaken. She knew that the odds were stacked against them. Their fleet was small, their resources almost exhausted, and they had no idea if the artifact would even work again. But there was no other choice. Earth had been given one last chance to survive. As the fleet departed, heading towards the heart of the Council's formation, Dr. Drake's mind raced. She couldn't shake the image of Earth burning, cities reduced to rubble, the planet caught in the grip of an unstoppable enemy. She had spent years studying the artifact, but even she couldn't predict how much longer it could last. Would it be enough to finish the job, or would it fail them at the worst possible moment? Meanwhile, high above Earth, Xoreth, supreme leader of the Galactic Council, was far from pleased. His second wave had been devastating, but the humans had shown unexpected resilience. The surprise attack from the artifact had done more damage than he had anticipated, but now the humans had become more than just a nuisance. They were a real threat, and he could not allow that to continue. His pride demanded their destruction. General Torketh. Xoreth barked, his voice laced with anger. Prepare the fleet for the final assault. I want Earth burned to the ground. These humans will learn their place in the galaxy. Torketh, standing at attention, nodded sharply. We've already begun mobilizing, leader. The third wave is ready to launch. But there's something we should consider. The humans may have discovered something we didn't anticipate, something more powerful than we thought. Xoreth's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? We've been monitoring their communications. They're preparing for something big. Our scouts report that their fleet is heading straight for us. They're going to make a desperate attempt to destroy the flagship. We should be ready. Xoreth clenched his fists. Fools, they think they can challenge us. Very well, prepare the fleet. But I will not be caught off guard again. Earth's rebellion will be crushed once and for all. As Xoreth made his final preparations, the Earth fleet moved closer to their target. They were running out of time. The Galactic Council's third wave was fast approaching, and this would be their only opportunity to strike at the heart of the Empire. The fleet moved swiftly through space, cloaked by the remnants of the artifact's technology, invisible to the Council's sensors. Dr. Drake, aboard the command ship, watched as the vast darkness of space stretched out before them. Stealth systems are holding, Lieutenant Marlowe reported. We're on course to intercept the flagship. No signs of detection yet. Keep it that way, Drake ordered. Once we make our move, we need to be quick. We don't have much time. The ships of Earth's fleet moved as one, their engines silent as they approached the Galactic Council's flagship, which loomed in space like a massive floating city. It was surrounded by dozens of warships, each one bristling with weapons. The flagship was the command center of the entire Council fleet, a prize that, if destroyed, would cripple their operations. As they neared the flagship, Harris's voice crackled through the comms. We're almost in position, preparing to engage. Drake's pulse quickened as she watched the approaching flagship grow larger. This was it. The success of this mission would determine Earth's fate. Failure meant their complete destruction. But in that moment, something shifted inside her. She had seen humanity fight for its survival, seen its resilience against all odds. The artifact, the fleet, the people, they had come together for this one chance. She had to believe that Earth could win. Then, as if in response to her thoughts, the warning alarms went off. Enemy detection. Lieutenant Marlowe shouted. We've been spotted. They've activated their defenses. Xoreth had anticipated their move. The once quiet space erupted into chaos. The Earth fleet's stealth systems faltered as energy blasts lit up the dark void, narrowly missing their ships. The first wave of Council warships turned to face them, weapons charging. There was no turning back now. Engage the enemy. Harris's voice was filled with urgency. We have to keep them distracted while the strike team gets through. The Earth fleet opened fire, their remaining ships launching a barrage of plasma blasts and missiles. The Council warships retaliated with deadly precision, the darkness of space illuminated by the exchange of fire. Earth's forces fought valiantly, knowing that each second bought the strike team a little more time. Drake held her breath as the strike team, composed of their best pilots, broke through the chaos, heading toward the flagship. They had only one chance to get in close. The artifact's energy would be their only hope. But just as they neared the flagship, something unexpected happened. A new weapon, one unlike anything Earth had seen before, emerged from the flagship's core. It was a massive energy beam, brighter than the stars themselves, and it was aimed directly at Earth's fleet. This is it, Drake thought, her heart racing. The fate of humanity now rested on this final, desperate strike. The beam shot out, racing through space at unimaginable speed. It would obliterate everything in its path. But in that moment, a small flicker of hope appeared. The artifact pulsed again, its energy building, and for the first time, it responded to the desperate need of those fighting for survival. The power of the artifact surged forward, meeting the Council's beam in the heart of space. Time seemed to slow as the two energies clashed, light and dark battling for control. It was a moment of pure, unfathomable power, a fight between two forces that would decide the fate of everything. The outcome was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: Earth was not going down without a fight. The battle for survival had reached its peak. The clash between the forces of Earth and the Galactic Council reached its peak, a cataclysmic explosion of light and energy that shook the fabric of space itself. Dr. Amelia Drake watched in awe as the artifact's energy pulsed and collided with the Council's weapon, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as though time itself had frozen, with both sides locked in a fierce struggle for dominance. The massive beam from Sorath's flagship and the artifact's power collided in the void, creating a blinding explosion that reverberated through space. The shockwave pushed the surrounding warships into disarray, and for a brief moment, it felt as though everything might crumble around them. The Earth fleet, though battered, held their ground, their determination refusing to break even as the immense energy of the blast threatened to tear them apart. On board Earth's command ship, Dr. Drake's fingers tightened around the console in front of her as she watched the display. "Lieutenant Marlowe, report," she shouted over the deafening noise of alarms. Marlowe's voice cracked through the chaos. "The flagship's shields are failing. The beam, it's been repelled. We've got a clear shot." Drake didn't wait for any further explanation. She stood up, her face hard with resolve. "Prepare the strike team. This is our moment. We move in now." The Earth fleet was already engaging the remaining Council warships, their forces in full retreat. The Council had underestimated the humans, and now their overwhelming strength was crumbling. But this wasn't the decisive moment yet. The artifact's power had bought them time. But it was now up to the brave few on the ground and in space to make the final push. Meanwhile, high aboard the flagship, Sorath seethed with fury. The Council's once mighty weapon had failed, and now his fleet was falling apart. The artifact's sudden surge of energy had done the unthinkable. It had weakened his flagship's defenses. But he refused to believe he could be defeated by mere humans. His pride, his very essence, was at stake. "General Torketh," Sorath hissed through gritted teeth, "recalibrate the main cannons. Prepare to unleash everything we have left. We will destroy them. Now." Torketh, his expression grim, nodded. "Aye, leader. We are initiating final weapon protocols." Sorath's eyes glinted with wrath as he turned to the large viewport, watching as the battle unfolded. "It's not over yet," he muttered to himself. "We shall see who the true masters of this galaxy are." On Earth's side, Commander Harris watched the unfolding chaos through the window of his command ship, his heart pounding. The strike team had already launched, and the final assault on the flagship was underway. Their only chance now was to reach the heart of Sorath's ship, destroy its command core, and disrupt the entire Council fleet's operations. It would be a suicide mission for most, but the humans were prepared to make that sacrifice. "Commander, we've reached the flagship." The lead pilot's voice came through the comms, a mix of urgency and determination. "We're going in. Hold on." As the strike team's ships moved toward the flagship, the Council's remaining defenses tried to regroup, but it was clear they were losing control. The humans had made it this far, and now there was no turning back. The strike team, a mix of elite pilots and soldiers, would have to navigate through a labyrinth of automated turrets, energy shields, and increasingly desperate council forces. Their path would not be easy, and the risks were unimaginable, but Earth's last hope lay in their success. Drake stood with Harris by her side, her eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching battlefield. She could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the world's future resting on the shoulders of those heading straight for the flagship's core. Her heart raced, but she knew she had no choice but to trust in their courage and the power of the artifact. The strike team's ships weaved through the chaos, narrowly avoiding deadly energy blasts from the flagship's remaining defenses. One by one, the ships moved past the initial layers of shields and automated turrets, getting closer and closer to their target. The Earth fleet, fighting with every ounce of strength they had, kept the Council's attention diverted long enough for the strike team to reach the final phase of their mission. Approaching core, came the voice of the lead pilot. "We're almost there. Prepare for entry." Drake's breath hitched. It was now or never. If they could penetrate the flagship's core and destroy the command center, it would cripple the entire Council fleet and deliver a crushing blow to Xoreth's leadership. The fate of Earth hung in the balance. The strike team's ships launched their final assault. Missiles and energy charges slammed into the core's weak points, causing violent explosions that rocked the flagship. The entire structure groaned under the weight of the assault, the once impenetrable fortress now shuddering and breaking apart. Inside, the command center was on fire, and Xoreth's soldiers were scrambling in every direction. But despite the devastation, Xoreth refused to back down. As the flagship's systems began to overload, he issued one last command, his voice cold with venom. "Destroy Earth. Leave no survivors." Before his order could be carried out, an unexpected surge of energy blasted from the core of the flagship, causing a massive power fluctuation. The artifact's final, most powerful wave of energy exploded across the flagship's systems, shutting down its internal defenses and scattering its forces. It was clear. Xoreth's reign had come to an end. The strike team had succeeded. The flagship was in ruins, its leadership shattered. Xoreth's once invincible fleet was now leaderless and disorganized, and Earth had struck the final blow. The remaining Council forces attempted to regroup, but it was too late. The Earth fleet, battered but determined, launched a final, coordinated attack. With Xoreth's flagship destroyed and his forces in disarray, the battle quickly shifted in Earth's favor. In the heart of the command center, Dr. Drake allowed herself a brief moment of relief as the news came in. "The flagship is down," Commander Harris reported, his voice filled with triumph. "Xoreth's fleet is retreating. We've won." But Drake knew that the fight for Earth's survival wasn't over yet. This victory was only the beginning. The Galactic Council's influence was vast, and their power would not be relinquished easily. But for now, humanity had taken a stand, showing the galaxy that Earth was not to be underestimated. The battle for Earth's survival had been won, but the war was far from over. And as the Galactic Council's forces scattered into the depths of space, one thing became clear: humanity had awakened.